Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another side of this podcast. I am your host, Lachelle Corley. Get ready, get ready. We're about to have a real, relatable, and relevant conversation. Before I bring out my special guest, I want us to stop and pause and recognize what this month is about. This is Women's History Month, and this is Social Work Appreciation Month. I am so honored to be in the number as it pertains to being a woman, but also being a social worker. Social workers are the glue to society. I would definitely encourage you to check out my brief video that I am going to provide to you all after this podcast, where you will hear about some of the pioneers of social work and also hear about what social workers do. So before I call in my guest, I want you to know that social work is not just a service work, but it's a heart work. It takes a lot of heart, dedication, and commitment to serve people who are in need, um, under disadvantage, and those who are, immigrants, etc., in the various settings where we work, whether it's in a hospital, a school, a prison, the military. Social work is so broad and stretched out. And so this is a heart work. And again, I'm glad to be in that number. So I'm not going to delay because we have a very rich and great conversation. So I am going to call in our special guest, Miss Amy Haydak. Come on in, Amy.
Hello.
Yeah, much for being here. Audience, get ready. Okay, get ready. So before Amy and I dive into this wonderful conversation we're going to have, I want to tell you about who is Amy Haydak. Who is this wonderful woman? Who is she? Okay. Amy Haydak is a licensed clinical social worker. She specializes in trauma therapy. She's a parent coach. Oops, let me go back. She's a trauma therapist. She's a parent coach, a speaker, an author, and a mother with over 12 years of clinical experience supporting women and families. As a mother of two, Amy has experienced firsthand how motherhood can surface old wounds, challenge identity, and intensified emotional responses, all in earlier generations. This intersection of professional training and lived experience shapes her work today. Amy specializes in emotional regulation, generational trauma, maternal identity, and family systems. Using a trauma informed nervous system based approach, she helps women identify the roots of emotional triggers, understand their patterns, and develop internal safety and self trust. Her clinical background includes extensive work in mental health, anxiety, attachment, and emotional regulation. And she has supported ongoing research and education. Through therapy, coaching, speaking, workshops, and writing, Amy empowers women to break free from unhealthy generational patterns so they can reclaim their identity, step into unshakable confidence, and unbreakable self worth, and become the emotionally regulated mother who finally breaks the cycle. Her work emphasizes sustainable change, moving beyond survival mode into clarity, connection, and grounded leadership within the family. Amy believes that healing is generational. When a woman, when a mother heals her nervous system, understands her emotional world, and responds with intention, the impact expands far beyond her, shaping healthier relationships and emotionally resilient children for future generations to come. So today, everybody, this is Amy Haydak. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me, especially in this wonderful month.
Yes, this wonderful, glorious month. And I didn't tell the audience what the topic was. Our topic is focusing on a woman becoming
Mhm.
And again, it's relevant history month. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to just dive right into this. Okay. So, Amy, my
Mhm.
first question I have for you is, what would be the title of this chapter, this current chapter of your life, and why?
Slow down and listen. Why? Because I don't slow down and listen. I move very quickly. As you could tell, I have a lot that I have done recently in the last few years. So I had a very hard time slowing down, and listening. And when I say listen, this is a spiritual perspective, is because I think God is sending me, he's put me on a path and he's telling me to do things. And I want to take control and do it my way sometimes. We all love control. So when I slow down and listen, life goes much smoother and it feels much more peaceful. So I'm really trying to stay in that chapter of life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good to hear. Is that be still. You know,
Yes.
it sounds like a season of being still and getting in better alignment, so that you can maximize the fruit that you're already producing from the amazing work that
Right.
you're doing.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
my other question to you, Amy, is, again, this is Women's History Month, and a lot of times, we as women, um, we just don't have the sometimes the hurdles and the challenges of just uh the woman anatomy. It's being in these bodies is complex, but it's also the exterior, that the external
Yeah.
factors, the various roles that we play, whether it's a mother, a wife, a business owner, a student, etc. And just being able to just show up in the world as a woman, it's just so many challenges. My question to you
Mhm.
is, what is a quiet? Did you hear me? You need me to say it again?
I did hear it, and then it was glitching.
Okay.
But the
Okay.
quiet lie that I had to unlearn. Okay, so
Oh,
I'd probably
sorry.
say that they kind of over. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes.
Are we good? Okay, cool, cool. I would probably say that there's two that kind of stick out. That I'm still on the journey of unlearning, but it's the concept of like staying quiet to keep the peace, or being kind of preventative to keep the peace, making sure that you're doing certain things for certain people so that way there isn't a reaction, or not expressing your own feelings or your opinion because you don't want the reaction, taking on the feelings of others. That's one of my tendencies. I have a tendency to take on the feelings of others. I mean, I'm a social worker, I'm a therapist, so you kind of is natural, right? But with my family, and then what I wanted to do, instead of holding space for their feelings, I went straight to fixing it because I wanted to keep the peace, and it did the exact opposite. So I had to unlearn that experience. And then the other one was is the concept of if I do more, if I keep trying, if I try harder, then I'll finally be good enough. All right. I think that's one that shows up a lot. And I have to slow down and listen and be like, you're fine. You are just fine exactly the way that you are. And that's something that I'm very conscious about when I parent my children as well. But I probably say those are the two that stick out to me the most.
Yeah, and those are two good ones because
Mm,
how often are how often do people define themselves by their accomplishments?
a lot.
You
Mhm.
know, so much more to the quality of an individual, beyond what they have accomplished. you know
Absolutely.
Actually, if we're not careful, sometimes those very accomplishments can be the very things to create problems for us.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
just hearing what you're saying about, like, again, this chapter of your life of the quietness, and putting things in better perspective, so that you're showing up as best as you can as a mother and just as a person, is so
yeah.
important. And unlearning that your voice matters.
Mhm.
You're, you
It
know, you're not
absolutely does.
your voice deserves to be heard, and respected, and it doesn't need the validation of anyone to be received. Just like their voice deserves to be heard, and it doesn't need your validation to be received, or you know taken as whatever you're seeing, taken as it being something that is truthful or not. Like, your words is your story.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
if we cannot tell our story, it takes away from our humanity. It takes away from us being able to show up in the world as a person. So I'm glad you are unlearning that. Your
Yeah,
voice
me
matters.
too. Yeah,
And
thank
if
you.
we don't use our voice, who will?
Exactly. We have to. We absolutely have to.
Yeah. So my next question to you is, how would you describe the bitter and sweet aspects
Mhm.
of being a social worker?
Well, the sweet part is when we help, well, my clientele's mostly women. I do have some children and some men, but when I'm helping these women through some of the things that we've talked about already, and being able to uncover the layers of identity, and being able to help them experience joy and boundary setting, and just stuff that we should be doing anyway, right? That's sweet. And I'll cheer. I'll throw my arms up and I'm excited for them and they laugh at me because I am if they win, I win. So that is so
Yeah.
just a wonderful space. And those moments that you probably experience sometimes where you get just random message, maybe like 3 or 4 years after working with somebody, and they're like, you changed my life ultimately. Like the message might be something like that. Those are the moments that I'm like, okay, this is why I might only get one of those messages every 4 years, but I'm
Yeah.
still holding on to that message. The other side of it is that it's heavy. It is heavy. And we hold space for feelings for so many people and so many experiences. And I think us as social workers, therapists, we have to very much have a really good setup for our own nervous system regulation and self-care, and being able to leave work at work,
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thank you for sharing what you've said so far. Like you said, like when you are able to help a person reclaim their dignity, a sense
Mhm.
of their humanity, whether it's being to obtain the resources to get their life back on track, helping them to get their mindset in a different place where they shift from feeling like everything is against them to being able to see, like, I can make a difference. I have the power to do things differently. I don't have to you know keep up with what I'm doing that's not working. So when you're able to help a person reset their mindset and give them hope and build them up, I agree with that. Like, that that is a sweet part of what we do. As what you were saying, like the heavy side of things, like we are like we're like pit workers in a certain degree. Like, we meet people in their lowest, sometimes in their lowest states. It's like we're walking down into sometimes places of despairs with a flashlight.
Mm,
And sometimes the services that we're providing is at times the only form of hope that they're getting in their situation,
mm,
because sometimes they may not be able to share the depths of what they're dealing with their family, with their significant others. And it's so,
mm,
like, being able to have that privilege to create that space for someone to unravel
mhm.
under our care and under our the skills that we have. It is a bittersweet thing, but it's something that I'm more than certain you may feel the same way too. Like, it's something that I know I don't take it lightly. I
No,
definitely don't take it lightly.
no, most definitely not. And I should know the percentage by now because I've used this example so many times, but the outcome of someone's healing or success in therapy, reaching those particular goals, the clinical interventions matter, but the relationship, the connection they have with the therapist, and that accountability and
Yeah.
that support, that percentage is way higher. And that's a big deal for someone to be able to be vulnerable, and um, you have that space where they can trust you.
Yes, absolutely. So, again, like, what made you want to become a social worker? I know that's not probably one of our questions, but what made you decide?
Are we back? I think we're back. So
Yeah, I know it's kind of
that's
going in and
okay.
out.
Listen, I'm a telehealth therapist. This happens all the time. It's part of life these days. You know what?
It's windy outside, everybody. It's
That's all it
windy. It's
is.
very windy outside, so you might see a little stall.
That's okay. We're gonna make it work. You know what? I think like so many people had this amazing answer to why did you become a therapist? Why did you become a social worker? To be honest, I think it was just I know it was just God because I don't ever remember having this passion to help people. Like, like I really want to grow up helping people. I really want to be I had no idea what social worker was. I honestly wanted to go to school for psychology, but I went to the county college first on a scholarship and they didn't have that as a major. They had social work. And I was like, that's close enough for now. I think the big shift, I had a professor there. And I can't even remember exactly what it was, but there was something about the connection and the relationship and the way that he spoke. He was an ex-Marine too, so he scared me a little bit. But I was like, I think I want to be a social worker. And I still had no idea what being a social worker actually meant. None whatsoever. And then things just aligned. My internships, the people I met, the job offers, like they were like, hey, you should work here. It's just aligned. I don't think I had any like ideas of what I was doing. It just kind of fell into place. So I'm gonna give the glory to God that I was supposed to be here and I just had no idea.
Yeah. And it just, well, guess what? You was right where God needed you to be, because look at your path.
That's
Look where
it.
you are right now. And that's the thing.
Yeah, I love
Sometimes we stumble upon like purpose activities
mm,
without seeking them out,
yeah. Hmm.
because you weren't seeking this and like, bam, look, this is where you need it to be.
Right.
And I guess this goes back to what you said in the beginning about like just kind of like what you talked about in the chat, that silence, that kind of like be still
Mm,
ness that you are in.
yeah.
Um, my next question to you is, what is the hope that you want your readers to gain from this book that you wrote? Can you show the audience your
Sure.
book?
So it is called Unwritten Stories, A Mother's Journey on Becoming. It's on Amazon and it's super cheap. It's an easy read. It's a reflective space, a lot of learning and a lot of reflection and a lot of growth and healing. Um, I wrote it, I think, because I was in a space of my own healing that made a little bit more sense. It had a little more clarity, and I wanted women to be seen, like to be heard, the parts of the story of our transformation on wanting to be a mother, becoming a mother, newborn, toddlers, preschool, and all the stages, all the way up to empty nest and so forth, to actually be talked about, be like, oh yeah, that did happen, I'm not alone. But also there's psychoeducation in there, and there's reflective questions as to help you understand that what you were experiencing and what you were feeling and thinking was normal, right? And then
Yeah.
what do we do with that? How can we learn from that? How can we grow from that? So the book, I feel, also is just like, let's bring some normalization to the experience, and also that empowerment of there can be growth. Let's take it, let's learn from it, and let's grow. You don't have to keep your voice silent. You don't have to stay in this stuck mess. You can grow. And that there's all these different shifts in the book that goes through throughout the different changes in motherhood as well, so you kind of can grow with it.
Yeah. Enjoyed reading your book, and what I appreciate, just as a mother, just as your child is transitioning and growing, you are transitioning and growing too.
Yes.
Their growth is not stopping, your growth is not stopping. And
Mhm.
being able to recognize that, guess what, I'm growing, and you're still, the hope is that we as adults, we keep doing what we're supposed to be doing as it pertains to this one thing: keep growing up.
That's it. That's
We're
it.
grown ups, so we have to keep growing up and up and up
Mhm.
and up. no matter what our age is. And I think your book captured that really, really well. The different phases, like when there is transition requires transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Because without the transformation for your transition is going to lead to a lot of frustration, and sometimes we fight against that. And even as mothers, just the changes in your body. So it's not even just like your role as a mom, how you evolve as a mother, but you're evolving with your body, after having a child to getting to perimenopause and menopause. And, so just being able to recognize that it is human and it is okay to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I
It
think,
is okay to change. And even with your family, certain things you may have been okay with as a young mother, but as you have evolved into your womanhood, and your role as a mother, there's certain things about you that's going to change. And some people may like it, some people may not. And that's all okay. It's all okay. But
yeah.
it's about, being the best version of yourself through your transformation.
Yes, absolutely. One thing this book doesn't touch on, and I haven't done anything book wise to address this, is that I think a lot of women who have experienced trauma in childhood and throughout adolescence, or have even been in some traumatic abusive relationships, is that yes, our identity shifts when we become a mom, but how secure was that woman in her own identity before even becoming a mom? So the concept of identity was potentially never even there because the world, trauma, relationships basically, poured these core beliefs into her of who she should be without
Yeah.
really even giving her the chance to live. But that's a whole different
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. And but you make a good point with that, because even as you evolve as a mother, you can evolve as a mother and say, like, you may have had some supports in your evolution, and
Mm-hmm.
then you get to a place where you don't need those supports like you used to,
Mm-hmm.
because you have, you're able to stand more on your own in your motherhood. That right there can also create challenges. I'm going to kind of like well, we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment because I don't want to jump ahead. So pause, hold that, everybody. Catch it. What they say, catch it, everybody, and hold that. What I was about to say, hold it. I'm gonna get to the next question, and then you'll see how it connects. So, can you elaborate on this sentence from your book that I thought was really, really good? And it was, mothers often hide their struggles because society rewards the mask.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that I wrote that because you see so much the concept of super mom. Oh my goodness, you make it look so easy. I can't believe you're doing all of that. You have it all together. You're this, you're that. Well, they're being praised for these external things that people see. But internally, the struggle or what's happening inside of the house, and I'm thinking of, the chaos in my house on the day to day that nobody even like knows is happening, but the kids, it's just how it goes. But it's being rewarded. The mask is being rewarded, and the things that we have to hide, well, they don't really have room to come out. So people love praise and people love rewards. So what's a woman gonna do? Well, yes, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, and just kind of keep on going with that while invalidating what motherhood, really feels like and what it really looks like. So yeah, I really like that statement as well in the book.
Yeah, and it's challenging. Motherhood
Mm-hmm.
is not easy. And I'm gonna say this, motherhood is not easy whether you are a single mother or a married mother.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Both of them, both uh whether you have a partner, you're single, you're married, it's challenging. And I think when I read your bio, the key word that puts this together is how that mother is able to regulate her nervous system under the
Yes.
pressure of being a mother.
Yes.
And as
Mm-hmm.
she is growing, she may be a little rough on in the beginning of things because of Again, you talked about the environment she came from, the beliefs that she was, raised around. But then when you become a mother, you start to create your own beliefs from your now firsthand experience, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and that can, help you with changing how you're regulating your nervous system with certain things. And individuals from previous generations may not agree, right? They may not agree with how you are choosing to parent your child, how you may decide not to wear the mask, right?
Mm,
You may not be, trying to suck it up buttercup and be the strong woman, and you
right.
allow yourself in safe spaces to fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's with a
Yeah.
therapist, whether that's at a house of faith at church with a support, with your friends, and
Mm-hmm.
normalizing that mothers fall apart.
Yes, absolutely.
Mothers are
Sure.
human. Mothers have feelings. Yes, they are the nurturer, but they also need to be nurtured.
Yes, you sure do.
And
I'm gonna throw that.
oh, you was going to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna say the idea of super mom is yeah, we can still be super moms, but let's like redefine what it is. The fact that everything you just said, we do have emotions and we do cry and we do get angry, we do make mistakes and we can repair. Um, we're human, absolutely. So new definition. That's a new super mom.
Yeah, that's a new super mom. Mom
Yeah.
don't have to be strong all the time.
Mm-mm. No.
Mom needs a space, a safe space to fall apart
Mm-hmm.
and be
Absolutely.
poured into and nurtured and built up within safe spaces.
Sure.
Because actually, who helps? Who doesn't help for mom to wear the mask? A
It
lot
does
of
kids a
times,
disservice, family a
yeah, go ahead,
disservice.
yeah. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh no, you were going to say more. Yeah, it is a disservice. Absolutely, it is.
Mhm. When women are able to like express their feelings, and I love repair because like I'm human, and there are days where I am a little snappy, and then I'm like, oh crap. So, I have to humble myself. The fact that like I need to apologize to my 3-year-old, to my 6-year-old, because they didn't deserve the snappiness mom gave them because I forgot to eat that day because I didn't take care of myself that day, right? And I share this story so much because it's so powerful. You could pretend to be perfect and never make a mistake. That's ridiculous. But let's pretend, right? Your children learn nothing. When you make a mistake, when you repair, when you express your feelings, when you humble yourself, when you say, I can have a conflict with somebody, apologize, and still have a good relationship with you, it is it way better than being perfect, right? Because that emotional intelligence scale, shoo,
Yeah.
my 6 and my 3-year-old have more emotional intelligence than some adults I know. And I will 100%, my husband and I will 100% take the credit for that because we work really hard with being able to normalize those feelings. And guess what? I don't always like all of the feelings they're having. And that's hard for me sometimes, right? Um, but like
Yeah.
what I see, because I'm able to, and my husband's able to humble ourselves when we screw up, I see them doing it with each other. Like if my daughter's
Yeah.
upset with my son, this, that, and the other, and he gets upset, and then they're just like, I'm sorry I did that. Or they'll come apologize to me. And, after they reflect, and I'm like, all right, well, there's something to this. Let's keep going. But that connection after the repair is so much stronger. So much stronger. I know that was kind of off topic, but I wanted to share because it's absolutely powerful.
Yeah, I think you're right on topic because when you're wearing the mask, none of that can be done, you know?
Mm-mm.
And like you said, it is important for kids to see their parent, they're asking their child to do. And, when I look at children, they are the most, children are the most taken advantage of humans on the planet. Kids are, and so it's important to let kids, to teach your kids like you have value even as a child.
Oh,
I'm not
yes.
better than you because I'm your parent,
Right.
you know? And if I love you, I wouldn't want to intentionally treat you in a way that diminishes your spirit, your self-esteem. I would want to build you up. And I think when kids see like how their parents or the adult figures in their immediate surroundings interacts, it gives them, like you said, like you're talking about your children, it gives them an example to follow. And even as a mother, your transformation, them not always seeing you perfect, but seeing you human in progress is important, because again, they can learn from you. One thing I always, I try to model for my kids is, it's a time to take a stand. It's a time to say nothing and just listen. It's a time to be humble and apologize when you are in error, and it's a time to just be supportive where you can. Like, it's a time for all these things, but I think it's important that we allow our kids to see us in those transitions so they can see, okay, if they have an example again to follow for themselves.
Children live what they learn. It's as simple as that. They see us, we model for them, they learn it, and they do.
Yep, they learn. And I love what you said with that too. It's not so much about what we say, it's about what we do. It's about what we do and how we do it. So I'm going to jump to the next question. The next question, we kind of tapped on it a little bit, but the next question is another sentence that was in your book that I thought was really good was, motherhood is a series of transformations. I know we kind of tapped on it a little bit. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think it very much flows with everything that we're definitely talking about. That's who you are wanting to be pregnant, who you are while you're pregnant, who you are when you have the baby, who you are when your child is 25, and everywhere in between, right? There's so many layers of motherhood that we're experiencing right now that we haven't experienced yet, that room for growth, but also the part of motherhood we're grieving, the parts of us that aren't going to be there, that aren't here anymore, and the parts that are grieving, not being able to go back to that space. And something else that's kind of in this space as well hits on that physical health part, but not just the way our bodies are transforming, but it's very common for women or trauma in general, but also there is a link, according to my doctor anyway, of autoimmune disorders after pregnancy, especially pregnancy later in life. Well, later in life. It's, the new version of later, geriatric pregnancy is what they call it these days. But to me, it's a normal age to have a baby. That, like, how that shifts your identity. So for me, that was one of my big parts of healing, is between I got 2 autoimmune disorders, one after each pregnancy, because, who doesn't want a surprise after that? And that happened, COVID was right in the mix of all of that too. So I was always very athletic and very active in my church and very active in my gym. Those were pieces of my identity. That's what helped to regulate my nervous system. They were taken away from me between the autoimmune disorders and COVID and this, that, and the other. And I had to adapt of like, okay, who am I now? The piece that allowed me to like really embrace part of myself, they're gone, or temporarily and shit. So I think like those new layers of identity is not just about the different ages of your child and in your relationships and things like that, but it's also, when you're impacted in a way that you never expected, how can we shift that identity, grieve what was, but also like take it and grow and learn and create new.
Yeah. And that's well said, because when you think about transformation, it's something significant happens that changes you. Like it alters how you see the world, how you see yourself, and how you interact with other people. And again, with motherhood, the point I was making that I kind of stopped, and I'm gonna release it now. With the transformation of motherhood, another thing that's important to recognize is that like, as you're growing as a mother, some of the interactions that you may have had in your early motherhood phase may change in the latter phase because of, again, death, people dying, um, different changes in relationships, moving
Mm-hmm.
away. There's just so many things that can impact the mother that you are becoming.
Yeah.
And there is a level of grief to all of that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a level of grief to not being who you used to be, but it's also the courage of growth that can make the transformation even more beneficial to your now. You know, it takes courage to be able to shift from what was to what is now. And
Yeah.
that's the choice we all have to make. You know, are we going to try to live our motherhood from focusing on how previous generations did everything, right? And use that as the only standard, or are we going to kind of like take some of the things that we may have learned and recognize that for me and my family, those are certain things that as a mother, I can't carry on. I have to unlearn them. I have to transform. So that
Mm-hmm.
way I'm not passing on something to my kids that really created dysfunction as opposed to stability.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely the things that we carry that were never ours to carry in the first place. We can drop
Yeah.
them. We don't have to keep carrying that anymore. Easier said than
Yeah.
done, definitely. But you're
Always.
absolutely right.
Yeah. And it takes courage. Like the mother you are, the woman you are becoming, the
Mm-hmm.
mother you are becoming takes courage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It
Those
takes
are-
courage for you to look at yourself and say, you know what? There's some things I'm really proud of myself from doing. And
Mhm.
there's some things I got to change. I have to grow because it's not producing healthy outcomes.
Yes. The awareness and
You know?
intention. I say those words so often in my practice and anywhere I go with these conversations. Um, we can have a lot of skills and interventions and therapies. Yes, those are helpful. Don't not do those. Um, but you have to start with awareness and intention for anything else to actually for anything else that follows to actually work.
Yeah. And I'm going back to what you said in the beginning. So when you talked about like the chapter that you're in, that kind of like silence, kind of like slowing down kind of thing,
Mhm.
that's being still.
Yes.
And when we are being still, it
Mhm.
helps to build awareness.
Mhm. Which can be
When we're
scary
being still,
sometimes, to be honest.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. When you're doing that deep reflection,
Oh gosh, yeah,
you're like,
absolutely.
who, me? That me? And it'd be like, that you, that
Yeah.
you, that's you,
Mhm.
right? So, but it's a courageous thing, as I keep saying. What transformation takes courage. The beautiful part of that insight of awareness is that it exposed to you a choice.
Mhm.
Like if you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna keep getting what you're getting.
Right.
But if you have the courage to move with intention,
Mhm.
you can get
There's
something else. You
yeah,
can become something else.
absolutely. Mhm.
You know, so I love that. Thank you
Good.
for sharing that. I love that. Um, how would you um apply the statement of, motherhood is a series of transitions? How would you apply that? And we kind of tapped on it. How would you apply that to women? Being a woman is a series of
Mhm.
transitions and transformations.
So we already shared like the idea of different relationships, different careers, kind of that shifting in womanhood, and into adulthood and whatnot. But I think like the biggest part that fits the theme of what we're talking about is as you're growing and you're on that healing journey, you're going to now learn to set boundaries. Hopefully, you're going to now learn, self-care and worth and confidence. What does that feel like in your relationships? What does that look like in your relationships? What relationships did you have to say goodbye to because it no longer aligns with that new identity, or the I want
Right.
the identity that was unburied in your healing journey? So I think that's probably the biggest transformation or like shifts in womanhood is when we're able to recognize our worth.
Yeah.
Mm.
And to just add to that, with becoming that woman in a series of transformations of becoming a woman, well, being a woman is shedding. You
Mm-hmm.
are shedding when you're transforming. You are
Mm-hmm.
shedding those things, like kind of like you were saying, that don't align.
Yeah.
You know, and it could have been enjoyable, but it don't align. You got to let it go. Um, because the more you hold on to it, it's actually holding you down. And it's not just people and places and things, but it's also your mindset. One thing that I've noticed in my work, especially when I'm working with typically, and this happens with younger women, but I also see this in older women that I work with. I notice that the women who tend to be more joyful older in life, it's
Mm-hmm.
because they're flexible. They have a
Mm-hmm.
flexible mindset.
Yeah.
They seem to be a little bit more humble in their interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just like you think about growth mindset. Like they want to they want to grow even in their older age. Like they
Mm-hmm.
embrace certain techniques and
Mm-hmm.
different schools of thought. Like they're not just stuck in one way of doing things. And then I notice the ones that are challenged more, or they may even be more depressed and things or have more difficulty with managing, like with their depression and things of that nature. Part of it has to do with a rigidity. Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
a rigidness. It's a fear of change, and it leads to a dissatisfaction with life, and with relationships and with people, and it impacts self-esteem and just
Mm-hmm.
self-worth. And so the point that I'm trying to make is, with this of transformation, it's going to require flexibility, and it's going to require humility,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
because rigidity and pride is the breeding ground to misery.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make life less fulfilling
Sure.
than when the transformation, you're becoming more flexible and humble and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to grow with intention. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just older. I noticed that there, but it's all women can experience that to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you work through those two sides of things, the humility and the pride, the rigidity and the flexibility, you can flow and align with life a lot better.
Mhm. No, absolutely. That's right. The open-mindedness, and I think a lot of that is, what the patterns we've learned in childhood. The fear of change, the fear of the unknown. That's scary for anybody. But people who've
Yeah.
experienced trauma in certain ways, it amplifies the intensity of that. Yeah, and the familiar is always more, even though it's toxic or even though it's not healthy, it's familiar and I know what to expect. Where if I
Yeah.
change something, I don't know what to expect. And that's scary. And I don't think I want to do that. That's usually a big theme
Yeah.
I see with women, especially women who are in like abusive relationships. It's really hard to want to change that because they don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. I also like in your book, I like that your book doesn't just look at the now, but it looks into the future.
Mhm.
So what was a turning point in your life where you had to choose a different path than your family of origin? And there's another part to that. If you did experience any grief in that process, how did you manage it?
Mhm. I think it wasn't necessarily like one specific turning point, but it was this growing awareness, mostly after I became a mom, because there were things that were triggering me that I'm like, well, what's this? And I'm the trauma
Okay.
therapist, and I was questioning the experience. So I'm like, I know this isn't right, but what's happening? So it took me a little flexibility to allow myself to have the feeling, to understand the
Yeah.
environment of what was happening, right? So I think it was just a growing awareness was more of my turning point, realizing that I didn't, and it ties to the things I had to unlearn. The idea of, our feelings need to stay at a certain space for it to be peaceful. or certain spaces where you just stay quiet because we pick our battles, or the idea of how hard do I have to try for this or for that, right? I think the awareness of when I was seeing my, at the time, just I only had the one, but just seeing her face, and I'm like, how could I ever do this or do that to this little girl? Like, I would never want her to feel this particular way. So just having that awareness of what I wanted to say, and like almost like the outcome. I almost, before I read that pause, like you said, in that pause, right? That intention, you have space for choice. So I think I skipped ahead to, before I acted, I skipped ahead to, what do I want to teach here? What do I want her core value to be based on this interaction? And it was a lot of work up here to do this,
Yeah.
because it was just like this constant, like almost overcompensating. So I had to find a balance of like, it doesn't need to be that rigid either. Um, but just like understanding my internal experience as it was happening, specific to like worth and performance, and how I wanted to project that or teach that to my child in a healthy way. I don't know if that necessarily answered the question completely, but I think that was it, just like the awareness of the patterns and how much I didn't want that to just kind of even unintentionally get passed down. And then,
Yeah.
oh, the other one was,
Yeah.
you
And I
said if I,
mean, you hit it,
sorry, go ahead.
the grief. Oh, no, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yes, it was about the grief.
Yeah, and I think it was again just the concept of awareness, knowing like human behavior. We study human behavior, right? We analyze all this stuff. So I very much understand and have compassion for what I experienced in childhood, what it was, where it came from. I got that, right? I'm at peace with that. But then you have the ambivalence of, but I'm still kind of frustrated and angry about some parts of it. Right? So I think I have this balance that it's hard for me
Yeah.
sometimes, because I have the education and the knowledge, but sometimes I just want to be mad. And it's hard because I got this piece, you know. So I
Yeah.
think that's the hardest part of going through that process of really understanding it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, when, and this question is more, well, I'll move to the next question because my statement is going to go more with that. So my next question is, how can people be more compassionate to the generations ahead of them while also being courageous for the generations
Mm.
behind them?
I realize all of my answers tied together very well. Or maybe you just placed the questions that appropriately, right? But it's slowing down. It's a lot, and if I'm speaking specifically to, mothers and children, and generations to come, specific to that, it's allowing our kids to have all the feelings without judging them, without screaming at them. Now, as parents, do we still have to teach some things? Not all things are appropriate, and I'm not all about the gentle parenting kind of space. There is a balance and some things that need
Yeah.
to challenge that. But I think just the concept of, just because I don't agree with your feeling and your reaction, I can still sit with you and I can still let you know that I love you and you are safe and we can do this together. And
Yeah.
then before and after, that's when we model, that's when we teach, that's when we practice the skills, that's when we set boundaries as to what is okay and what is not okay. We don't do it in the
Right.
moment when our child's nervous system is at a 10. And when our nervous
Right.
system is at a 10, you're going to do nothing but damage. So I think to, be compassionate about the future generations is to just let them have their feelings. It's really simple. It's not anything like elaborate. You don't have to agree with it, but let them have their feelings. Validate that feeling. I'm here for you. You are safe. You are loved. And no matter what, we will be okay and we can do this together. Um, and in terms of like past generations, that maybe our mothers and our fathers and grandmothers, maybe the patterns they wanted to change, but didn't know how to, or didn't have the support. Well, now we get to choose. I can set boundaries. I can regulate my
Yeah.
emotion. I can teach these things. I have the choice to teach these things to my children. I can choose to express my feeling without feeling guilty about it, right? So I think that's a good way to really be able to say, I can honor the past generations who maybe wanted to, but just didn't have the tools to do it. I do, right? We do.
Yeah.
We have so much at our fingertips that we can get. Um, so that's what I'm doing, trying to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
And I think you hit it right on the nail, the question, because that's the thing, one thing we do have to be aware of is, especially with older generations, yes, they were raised different. Yes, they may not have the insight and the education and the information
Mm-hmm.
um, back then, but they have it now.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about is like, if especially with our older generation, if you want to learn some of this new stuff, you can.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be able to strengthen your interactions with the current generations that may be younger. But I would definitely say, um, that aspect of connection, healthy connection with
Mm-hmm.
your older generation is important. I think it is important having healthy connection with the older generation, but I also think it's important to be courageous to break away from some of the patterns from the older generation that creates dysfunction, a lack of, like, on both sides. It's like, make space to, you can make space to understand, you can give compassion, but you can also say, okay, these are some things that may have been done back then that's not healthy and not effective now, and this is what I'm going to do different as a parent, as opposed to, yelling. Well, I'm not going to say yelling, but as opposed to going to certain forms of punishment, I'm going to learn the difference between punishment and discipline. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to try to do my best to discipline my child so they can learn and have connection with me and not interact with me from a place of fear from
Yeah.
being punished. So I think the key is the flexibility aspect,
Mm-hmm.
being flexible to understand where they come from, but also being flexible to know that you don't have to continue certain things that former generations did,
Yeah.
and hopefully that creates a better opportunities with the younger generation that is ahead of you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can absolutely love and respect your parents and choose to believe something different, choose to do
Yeah,
something different. They can both exist at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. Um, so my last is, oh my gosh, we're at the end already. What is going on?
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
need a part
my
two.
last question, this went by too quick. Um, my last question is, how can people connect with you?
Okay. This is an easy one. Go to amyhaydakcoaching.com and all of the information is there. You has my like how to contact, how to schedule, all the stuff that I offer is on there. I have some articles. Actually, there's one that's related to the supermom that I'm probably will be published hopefully in the next couple weeks. But any publication articles are on there for people to check out. There are very trauma informed based and things like that. So if anything resonates and anybody wants to learn more, anybody who listens to the podcast, I offer a free coaching call to anybody who's interested in learning a little bit about what I do to see if it connects with them, get a little, a free 30-minute call for whatever it is that they're interested in talking about. But I'd like to offer that just because trying to offer as many resources as possible. So that's what I got for now.
And I am going to ask if you could say that again because you kind of stalled. The connection is acting weird with the wind. I don't want people to miss that.
No
Can you
problem.
please say that again?
Sure. It's probably gonna be the shorter version this time. So you can go to amyhaydakcoaching.com. On that page, you'll see a little bit about my bio. Underneath, you're going to see some publication articles. They are all trauma informed, mom, breaking generational cycles themed. And there's probably going to be one that I'm submitting for publication, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. That's related to the concept of the ideology of like super mom, right? Because I want to challenge that a little bit more. So that'll be on there. Links to the books are on that page. My cycle breaker program that I offer is also on that page, so you can check that out. But every listener, I'm offering a free coaching call to every listener. And that link is also on amyhaydakcoaching.com. Just click coaching call and schedule your call, and it's free. So take advantage of it.
All right. Well, you got it there. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing your story, your feedback. I hope the women, the men too, if you were listening. But I hope the audience in general, I hope you got something out of this. Remember, we are all becoming, so make sure you be compassionate with yourself. Make sure you continue to do that self-reflection, not from a place of, beating yourself down, but seeing where you can continue to grow up and up and up and up. And make sure you tell a friend to tune in, subscribe to the channel, and look forward to hearing from me again as we go to the other side. Thank you for tuning in.